We'll get things moving. So, as I say, very thrilled to have Dr. Ruth Harley with us today. She was previously the Executive Director of New Zealand Air from 89 to 95. She was also Chief Executive of the New Zealand Film Commission in the late 90s to 2008, and she served as the Head of Screen Australia, also had roles with New Zealand On Screen, Film New Zealand, as well as having roles with New Zealand Cricket Museum, Fulbright New Zealand, and has been a board member of the Len Lai Foundation. She was awarded the OBE in 1996, and in 2006 was awarded the Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit. So she brings an incredible wealth of experience, and please give Ruth a very warm welcome.
The big difference in the factual conversation from any conversation we would have had, well, this is not quite true, but it's nearly true, for the 30 years of New Zealand On Air, is the need to address issues relating to journalism. When New Zealand On Air first started, we did in fact support 60 Minutes on TV3. It was very controversial at the time. We supported New Zealand content on 60 Minutes and produced stories which I can't remember the names of, I'm sorry, it is 30 years ago, but stories that were very well regarded as high-end journalism. That sphere of work sort of faded out as TV3 got online and continued its own investigative journalism. TVNZ did the same thing. It seemed that all was well in the journalism space. But I think we've all learned since the American election and Brexit that all is not well. And we in New Zealand need to have our own voice. We need to have trusted media. We need to have some way of telling the difference between news that has some form of truth about it and news which is fake news. And we have to own our own storytelling ability in this space. So that was, again, an important part of the conversation at the Factual Hui last week. And this, I know, is much in the mind of the Minister. We also need to consider our changing demography. We have much larger Asian population than we previously have. Of course, we know we have a large Pacific population, and we know that we are at root a bicultural country. So Māori are relatively well cared for, although they would dispute that hotly, but they at least do have Māori TV and Te Manga Pāho and Māori content in all the public spaces. Pacific Island people much less so, and Asian people less so again. Never mind migrants from other countries who are in all of our minds today. We also, in the last couple of years, have had the opportunity to do special subjects. So in the year under review, it was suffrage, and New Zealand On Air put out an RFP, a request for proposals, to say who's got a good idea about 125 years of suffrage. And a number of programs were made on that theme. This year it's Turia 250, which is Captain Cook. And who knows what it will be next year. And it doesn't have to be every year, of course, but somebody suggested to me climate change. Yeah.
Cook 250 is by Turia, I think.
I think the word is Turia, but it might be TUIA. What is it?
I don't know.
TUIA? TUIA. What exactly does it mean? I'm sorry, I don't know. But I understand it. So what it started off being is a celebration of Captain Cook discovering New Zealand. Well, it didn't take 5 minutes for Maori to say that that was completely unacceptable as an idea, because firstly there was nothing to celebrate, and secondly he didn't discover it. So it was a pretty hopeless idea. So it morphed instead to how do we think about these events of 250 years ago? Which
sounds
is
pretty good. Sounds pretty good. I don't know whether I noticed it.
You haven't noticed it because it's not on your air yet.
Yeah.
Coming.
That sounds like to me a worthy project.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I think it will be. I think it will be, and I think it's much improved for the debate that surrounded what it was to be called. The thing that was good about the suffrage one was that it was obviously female-led projects, and as I'm sure you all know, there's a lot of debate about the opportunity for women in this sector as there is in so many others. And I've got no doubt that Tuia 250 will have very diverse content makers who will not be all white people saying, yippee, Captain Cook came along. And now just a couple of things to close. One is, how do we measure what we do? Well, you can measure volumes of content, you can measure number of platforms, you can measure audience sizes to some extent. In other words, some of the measurements are reliable and some aren't. You can measure awards won, you can measure number of jobs. All of these things we do. But we know that the purpose of public media has to do with our favourite new word, which is cultural well-being. I say our favourite new word because anybody who's working in the public sector who's got anything to do with government policy has put the word well-being at the top of their vocabulary list. But it's true that that is what those of us who are messianic about culture believe, that it is fundamental to our well-being. And I will leave my speculations to later. That's enough.
Thank you very much indeed, Ruth.